On this episode, I investigate the state of Wisconsin for giants and cryptids. But when researching giants in Wisconsin, you can't do that without mentioning the mounds. And Wisconsin has a very special type of mounds called effigy mounds. And in fact, they have more effigy mounds here than anywhere in the entire world. Hi, my name is Jenna Bosiger, and thank you for watching the Cryptids YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. There was actually a lot of activity going on, and most of the action is going on in the southern part of the state. Here's a place called Bigfoot Beach State Park. That's right off of Lake Geneva. Now, the most notorious place for having found giants in Wisconsin comes from Lake Delavan. Strange skeleton found. Indications that a tribe hitherto unknown once lived in Wisconsin are much larger than the heads of any race which inhabit America today. The jawbones are long and pointed, bearing a minute resemblance to the head of a monkey. And right above from there, just this short distance, is Elkhorn. And Elkhorn is where the Beast of Bray Road comes from, and that is a werewolf-type creature. And this is just one of many places that werewolves have been reported in this area. I think it's very interesting that it is so close to Lake Delavan. And then right above that, between Madison and Milwaukee, is Aztalan State Park. This is a huge mound builder site, and this whole area was basically inhabited by giants because the reports come from all over, and they come from the mound sites themselves, buried in the mounds. They're burial mounds, including the effigy mounds. 1829, Reed Historic Story in Indian Mound. Milwaukee Public Museum expedition finds evidence of two ancient cultures near Stoddard, Wisconsin. The mound builders, that vanished race with whom the history of most of the North American continent stops, left 10,000 to 15,000 of their mounds scattered over Wisconsin, but little else to indicate who they were and whence they came. Find bones in Indian Mound. Normal professor and students excavate historical hills near Stoddard. 50 skeletons unearthed. Remains of giant aborigines discovered. Weapons and utensils are buried. So this was inhabited. Before the Europeans arrived, and they settled right on top of it. Same with Milwaukee. There's mounds in Sheboygan. And then here's Green Bay. This is getting into what they call the copper culture. And then right here you have Copper Culture State Park, and this area I'll get into more when I talk about Michigan and all of the copper that supplied the mound builders all the way down to Oklahoma and Louisiana and even Florida. That's where they got their copper, was from up here. They all traded. And there may be evidence that some of this copper was being taken over the seas, across the seas to Europe somewhere. But we'll get into that more. But there is the copper culture. They're just mound builders, and they controlled the copper. So all around here there are effigy mounds of different creatures. Many of these creatures we know, and some are legendary. This is Lizard Mound State Park. There were giants reported in Fond du Lac. Giant Indian bones. Discovery of an extraordinary skeleton found near Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. An Indian skeleton was dug up on the farm of Matt and Joseph Leone, 1 mile south of St. Cloud. Oh, look at this valley of ice. There were also giants found in Trempealeau and Stoddard, which should be right around there. You go, Stoddard. Trempealeau finds skeleton of giant. Well-preserved implements are dug up in the city of Trempealeau, 1906. Excavators removing soil for a new sidewalk a half-block south of Main Street uncovered what is believed to have been a mound builder. Also, some well-preserved stone implements, weapons, pottery, and an oven, presumably of prehistoric origin. Ernest Bright made the discovery. He saw part of a skull protruding from the damp earth, and after digging a few feet below the surface, the spinal column and other bones were found. Trempealeau citizens say the bones are either those of an Indian of unusual size or of a mound builder, which archaeological researchers have proved lived in the vicinity of Trempealeau. The latter theory is more generally accepted because of the array of the stone implements found with the bones. A clay oven was found embedded in the dirt. Many dishes of brackish cast and made of a peculiar stone were also found. And all along the Mississippi, including just across the border of Iowa, these mounds are huge, though. They're huge. They were huge. The skeletons they found inside were huge, and things were bigger back then. And then you have Effigy Mound State Park, which is actually in Iowa, but is just across the Mississippi, and really it's part of this whole Wisconsin effigy mound. And there's still some mounds scattered around up here as well, but for the most part, they are in the southern part of Wisconsin. But you do have places like Rhinelander that has the legendary hodag that was found here, and not only do they have a sculpture of it, but if you zoom into Rhinelander, and if you look, the whole place is surrounded by wilderness areas, but in the center of town, you've got Hodag Volleyball Court, Hodag Park, Hodag Dome. There are many things reminiscent of the hodag that was said to be found somewhere around in or around Rhinelander. Well, if they had any brains, after seeing what happened to that hodag, they would have known their survival depended on remaining hidden from humans, because once this hodag was caught, he was killed. But the hodags are reported and could be the very creatures known as the Mishu Pangshu. Reports of giants in Wisconsin. Lake Delavan. This one says, a prehistoric race. 14 skeletons, carefully walled in, persons of large stature, mound on shore of Delavan Lake. The following descriptions of finding 14 skeletons in a mound on Delavan Lake, which was opened by the owners of the property, E.F. and C.W. Phillips, is found in the Delavan Enterprise. The bodies were found in a carefully walled cavern or pit, about 7 by 9 feet in dimensions and at a depth of about 8 feet. Two were buried in a sitting posture, each in a corner, and the other 12 were closely packed in the restricted space. The bones were in very fair condition in preservation and were carefully removed and are now being coated with shellac to preserve them better. The pit had been carefully constructed by those who built the mound, a floor of stone laid and the walls laid up with the stone. The pit had then been filled, and the work of the building the mound started, a roof being constructed over the remains by starting an immense ore over a layer of clay, baking it to the consistency of firm brick and making the interior impervious to moisture. The cranium of one of the special warriors was of unusual size, and the other bones found would indicate that they were a race of giants. Evidence was found to sustain the belief that the 14 were killed in battle, probably with war clubs, and the fact that no weapons, pottery, or other material was found with the body leads to the belief that they were probably of the enemy and buried by the victors. If that theory were true, it is quite likely that some other of the nearby mounds there may be found the fallen heroes of the victorious tribe. In this article it says, find skeletons at Lake Delavan. Examination of skull tends to strengthen Darwin theory of evolution. Really? Madison, Wisconsin. The discovery of several peculiar skeletons of human beings while excavating a mound at Lake Delavan this week may furnish evidence to substantiate the Darwin theory that man is the descendant of monkey, or prove that a heretofore unknown race of men once inhabited southern Wisconsin. Information of the characteristics of this race was brought to Madison today by attorney Maurice Morrissey of Delavan, who came here to attend a meeting of the Republican State Central Committee meeting last night. Curator Charles E. Brown of the State Historical Museum will make an investigation of the discoveries within a few days. Upon opening one of the large mounds at Lake Lawn Farm last fall, 18 skeletons were discovered by the Phillips brothers. Little attention was given to the bones, and the elements soon turned the skeletons into a friable mass. When another mound was opened a few days ago, however, the excavators were struck by the peculiar facial characteristics. The heads, presumably those of the men, are very much larger than any race which inhabit America today. From directly over the eye sockets, the head slopes straight back to the nasal bones, which protrude far above the cheekbones. The jaw bones are so long and pointed, and looking at the inanimate frame, one is struck with the minute resemblance of the head of a monkey. There were a lot of reports on this. The heads, presumably those of men, are much larger than heads of any race which inhabit America today. From directly over the eye sockets, the teeth in the front of the jaw are regular molars. There were also found in the mounds the skeletons, presumably of women, which had smaller heads but were similar in facial characteristics. The skeletons were embedded in charcoal and covered over with a layer of baked clay to shed water from the sepulchre. A giant's foot in stone. Odd discovery while excavating near the structural tubing works. While excavating in the rear of the puddle mill at the structural tubing works the other day, a curiosity was unearthed. This was nothing less than a large stone bearing a marked resemblance to the human foot. The oddity of the find at once impressed the workmen, and they carried the stone into the office. An unlucky stroke of the pick had broken off a portion of the stone which corresponded to the big toe. On the bottom, resemblance to the human foot could not be much more marked if it had been chiseled out by an artist. The instep and ball of the foot, too, are nearly perfect. The foot is that of a giant, 18 inches long and weighing some 40 pounds. Wisconsin Mound opened. Skeleton found of a man over 9 feet high with an enormous skull. Maple Creek, Wisconsin. One of the 3 recently discovered mounds in this town has been opened, and in it was found the skeleton of a man of gigantic size. The bones measured from head to foot over 9 feet and were in a fair state of preservation. The skull was as large as half bushel measure. Some finely tempered rods of copper and other relics were lying near the bones. The mound from which these relics were taken is 10 feet high and 30 feet long, and varies from 6 to 8 feet in width. The 2 mounds of lesser size will be excavated soon. So the dig site in 1912 was overseen by Beloit College, and it included more than 200 effigy mounds, but the enormous size of the skeletons and elongated skulls found on May 1912 did not fit neatly into anyone's concept of a textbook standard. They were enormous, and these were not average human beings. Their heights ranged between 7.6 feet and 10 feet, and their skulls, presumably those of men, are much larger than the heads of any race that inhabit America today. Unlike humans, came in different races. Types of mounds found in Sauk County. The bird at the top is located on the Kirkland shore of Devil's Lake. The long lizard-like mound to the right is near the center of Section 5 in the town of Greenfield and is 656 feet long, the longest mound in the county. The mound between the bird and the lizard is found near the line between Sections 24 and 25 in the town of Delton. And the 3 bear mounds near the top, black, are near the H.C. Langdon bank of Draper Creek, are near the H.C. Landon home in Greenfield. The 3 to the left of the 3 bears are in a group of the bank of Draper Creek near the William Donald home between Baraboo and Devil's Lake. The deer mound, which part of was destroyed, is the home of Mrs. J.G. Train on 7-something 8th Street. The 3 birds are in Section 23 in Delton. The panther mound between the birds and the deer is in the north shore of Devil's Lake. The mound shaped like a short-handled paddle located in Fairfield, and the regular mound and the other dark ones at the bottom are in the Stage Road group. These are huge, and it's just amazing how they even made them to last this long. Wisconsin bird effigy mounds. Number 1 is the largest bird effigy known. It is located near Madison in Sauk County, measures 212 feet across, is located at Devil's Lake. And here is an article about War of Thunderbirds and Water Spirits Told in Legends. Story of the creation of Wisconsin's Evil Lake, as the Indians called it, is set forth in Winnebago. Folklore, Geology has an equally picturesque version. Madison, once upon a time, the Thunderbirds and water spirits went to war. Thunderbirds flew over the surface of a shining lake, hurling huge eggs at their foes to the depths, and these eggs shattered on the high rocky cliffs and the fragments tumbled into the wild disorder to the water's edge. This was the story told to the papoose, wondering about the unusual scenery of Devil's Lake, and curious to know how such place could have been created. Formed by cataclysm. The geologist tells of the long, long while ago when Devil's Lake rested beneath the sea, until the mighty convolution folded the ocean bottom and raised a range of quartzite mountains where the cliffs now stand. In some later period, the sea must again have claimed the area, as marine shells are deposited over the rocks. Again the water withdrew, and the great river, predecessor of the Wisconsin, flowed between the rocky bluffs. Then came the glaciers. They diverted the river and blocked its channel with great stones brought down from Canada, so that Devil's Lake, a little crystal sea with no outlet, now rests in a hollow more than a mile long by 1/2 mile wide, in what is now left of the ancient river channel. This is a picture of balanced rock. It says one of the marvels at Devil's Lake. Man of 500,000 years ago. The modern man of 500,000 years ago. His skull, his features. He was not an ape, but he had a well-formed and had a large brain. He had to have made the mounds with all their mathematical, astronomical alignments and the size of them, and they couldn't have been stupid. This is a problem for evolution. This is why scientists hate the idea of giants. And look what they've done to this mound. Obviously realizing the importance of it, yet disrespecting it to the point of vandalism. And so you look at these things and you think, wow, I can't even believe that they were that stupid. But at the same time, you can't underestimate people's stupidity. That's going to do it for this episode on Wisconsin. But stick around for next time because I'm not done with Wisconsin yet. I've covered most of the surface mysteries, but have yet to mention the lakes and what lies beneath them. From Lake Superior, water panthers, to Lake Michigan's underwater Stonehenge and petroglyphs, and more on Wisconsin's dogman and wolf creatures. And if that piques your interest, be sure to hit the like for this video and make sure you're subscribed. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, bye!